One Piece Chapter 1022 is out. We are back from break with fire in more ways than one. The cover story this week is nothing special, just the Tontado tribe playing hide and seek with the frog. Nothing really to say here. I do like the fact that Mansherry's playing with them. I think that's really cute. But we can hop straight into the chapter, and it starts off with somewhat of a recap of kind of just the events that have been going on. You know, the comparison between the numbers of the Alliance and the Beast Pirates, which has been dwindling the entire time, and they've been using CP0 to kind of describe how it's happening. But basically, the numbers have shrunk, and it's very close now. That's pretty much what we expected. We kind of saw the numbers game as more of just a talking point and not necessarily impactful to the entirety of the mission. Because we knew at some point the Kibudangos would come into place. We knew that a lot of these guys turned out to be fodder, you know, a lot of the gifters and such, so they didn't really matter as well. The biggest and most prominent fighting force were the Tobiropo and the commanders. And with this chapter, we get confirmation that the Tobiropo are down. Now, I mentioned this in a few of my other videos, but I kind of made the assumption that the Tobiropo will be back up at some point, you know? I saw Black Maria as the first one to officially go down, but it looks like technically they're all down. There's markers for where each of them went down at, and we even get a panel of some of them knocked out here. Now, I do find it odd that they didn't show Ulti and Page 1 in these panels. They just showed the 3 that were just defeated, which is interesting because even as a recap, you would think that they would cover the stuff that happened beforehand rather than what just happened. My hopes are very slim at this point, but I do still want Ulti to get back up, and that's just my personal bias, but you know I love Ulti. We also get positioning on Onigashima, and it looks like it's really close to the mainland. At this point, if Onigashima drops, it does damage either way. It might not devastate the entirety of Wano, but even if it drops in the water next to Wano, that's devastation. And with it being 15 minutes away, that means we have to look at the next few possibilities of what are going to happen here. Now, 1, Luffy beats Kaido before time is up. I don't think that's happening, and even if it would happen, that would mean the clouds disappear and that Onigashima falls on Wano. So there's a lot that's wrong with that one, so I'm pretty sure Luffy is not going to beat Kaido within the next 15 minutes. 2, Onigashima falls on Wano. And this is probably the least likely of all of them. This is probably the one that I would like to see the most because I think it would be the most interesting. But I don't think Onigashima is going to fall on Wano. I think someone's going to stop it somehow, some way. But I think this is one of the possibilities that are presented to us. 3, and what I feel like is the most likely, is going to be Momo aging up and using his dragon ability to hold up the island when Kaido tries to drop it. I think that that one has the most potential because it looks like Kaido isn't going to be stopped anytime soon. And that means that Onigashima is definitely making it over Wano. It's definitely going to get there, but now Momo has to hold it up. Time limits are always weird in One Piece because they give you a really false sense of how long things are going to take. You know, we have the 15 minutes here, but you know, it's going to take more than just a couple chapters for all these things to progress, or at least generally it does. You know, when you think about Dressrosa and the time limit there, it dragged on for a very long time. So what we see here, 15 minutes, that might end up being, you know, 5-10 chapters. We have no idea. Back in the Skull Dome, Raizo and Furokujo are still fighting, and it doesn't really seem like they've made any headway one way or the other. They're still kind of, you know, going back and forth. It seems like Raizo might be on the losing end or just not making any progress. And they're kind of having more of the banter about who they serve. You know, Furokujo serves Orochi, which even the way that Orochi is and the way that he got to be Shogun, he's still Shogun. So Furokujo is saying, you know, this is our duty to serve the Shogun. No matter who it is, no matter how they got there, it's our duty. Whereas Raizo, on the other hand, is pretty much saying that, you know, your loyalty should go above what your job dictates. And he's saying that he serves Odin. Even though Odin's not Shogun, even though Odin's dead, that's who he serves. He also notes that the Scabbards died on the day Odin died, and essentially they're ghosts now. And I think this, atop the other red flags that I've kind of been seeing for the Scabbards, this is also one of those things that sets up to where, like, he's saying they're okay to die. They already died when Odin died, so technically they're just ghosts now. They're just here to fulfill the duty, and once they fulfill that duty, you know, they can be done. Whether this means, you know, they'll end up dying, whether this means they'll be fading from the story, I'm not entirely sure. We see Kinemon, we see Kiku, we see Ashura Doji all laid out, still not moving, still not waking up. Don't know if they're dead yet. You know, we still don't have any confirmations on anything. The Scabbards are in a weird spot where it definitely seems like they're going to die, and them dying would be good for the progression of the story, but we don't really have any confirmation or any clues that they will actually die. At this point, it just seems like they're being taken out one by one, and eventually at the end of this, they're going to gather back up. Also happening within is the fight between Killer and Hawkins. And now this fight I thought was very weird because it seems like Killer is on the winning end of this fight. We see kind of the area around it, we see a bunch of dolls just knocked out on the ground. And generally this means that Hawkins has been taking a lot of damage. And Killer seems relatively fine. Like, it doesn't seem like he's taking a whole lot of damage. He doesn't seem to be panting or like, out of it at all, as if he was having a hard time in this fight. As their fight goes on, we get a revelation that Hawkins has a new body that stands in place of his own, and it's Captain Kidd. So basically, when Killer goes to attack Hawkins, he ends up stabbing Kidd, who's off fighting Big Mom Law. This is very similar to what he did with Law in having Beppo, Sachi, and Penguin having their bodies. Basically, he's presenting himself in which way that you can't hurt him unless you hurt your people first. Now in Law's case, he said that Law was willing to go the extra mile to take out everyone involved to make sure Hawkins is dead. But with Killer and Captain here, I think he knows that Killer is not going to try and kill Kidd just to get rid of Hawkins. He knows that won't be happening. So he's got leverage here that I think makes this fight less of a combat fight and more of a subduing Hawkins until Kidd can finish up what he's doing with Big Mom. It also makes me wonder what the conditions are for Hawkins to get a new body. How did he acquire Kidd's body as a part of his own? Is there some kind of like contact involved? Is there some kind of written speech, some kind of contract, kind of like how Sugars works? Where does it come into play where he gets control of that body? And then we go to the live floor where all the magic is happening. Now we get this great panel of, everyone's on fire, people are laid out, destruction is everywhere, and you see the two just standing atop it all, and they're huge. Jeez, they're massive. While Queen is in his hybrid form, I think King is just in his normal form. I don't know if the wings indicate that he's in some kind of hybrid form or if he just naturally has those, but King just seems to be in his base form, or at least in his normal form, standing that tall. We see Marco passed out to the side in all the carnage. We know he's not out for the entirety of the chapter because he comes back pretty quickly, but it just seems like he's been scrapping along with Sanji going against these two, and they've been putting in some work. Sanji's laid out as well, and it looks like he's trying to buy time to get Zoro back up and running. Basically, I think that's what Sanji and Marco have been doing this whole time, is buying time, trying to stall them until they get Zoro back. And when you look at King and Queen, they are expressly trying to get Zoro out of the picture, which makes me think that somehow, someway, they have some information on what happened on the rooftop. They know what Zoro is capable of, and so they're trying to make sure that he doesn't come back. Even with Sanji and Marco here, they're expressly saying, make sure that Zoro is not brought back. We have to make sure that he does not recover. So they know the pain he's going to be if he gets back, and they are desperately trying to stop that, but they end up failing. But before we get to that, let's talk about Perospero for a second, because he is trying to take out Sanji. And it looks like he's mostly been doing this from the background. Like, he's been kind of keeping his eye on the people he wants to pick off, and he's been trying to just snipe them in the background. Which, I mean, it's a good tactic, and it works for him because I don't think he's a very big close combat fighter. Nekomamushi, on the other hand, is a close combat fighter and immediately goes after Perospero. Now, he smacks him all the way outside and says, the fight's on. What I see here is that we might get more Sulong considering we're being pushed back outside. There's definitely a possibility of the full moon coming back, and not only Nekomamushi going all out, but we might see Carrot, we might see Wanda. We could even see some other Sulongs take. We got the mention of Beppo and his team beforehand in the previous chapter, so maybe he might go Sulong. Maybe he ends up, taking on Perospero. They all kind of have a grudge against him for what happened to Pedro, so it's not unlikely for any of the minks to try and attack him. And back to the most hype moment of the chapter, we have some of the allied pirates trying to take Zoro away so he can heal. And we get this scene of King just standing intimidatingly in front of everyone. It reminds me of the scene with Katakuri, where everyone's trying to carry Caesar out, Caesar and Beige, and then Katakuri is just standing there, stopping them from going anywhere. This is exactly what that reminds me of. It kind of has that same energy. Luckily, Marco comes in and stops that interception, and he also makes mention of King's race, which we know Big Mom talked about some time ago. Basically, King comes from a race that can conjure fire and lives atop the red line. Now, this doesn't exactly spell things out for us, but it does give us some context on that hidden race she was talking about. I assume that in this fight we're going to get more of that flame conjuring ability, and probably more of an explanation on what his race is, whether it be from King, whether it be from Big Mom, whether it be from Marco. Some kind of exposition is going to take place. And with Marco buying enough time for Zoro to heal, we get the return of the two wings of the Pirate King, Zoro and Sanji. They come through, Zoro takes on King, Sanji takes on Queen. Beautiful double page spread, looks fantastic, and we have the pretty much final setup for I think these two fighting. We're going to see Zoro take on King, we're going to see Sanji do Queen, which is the matchups we expected. I don't know if they're going to do more after this. Zoro with this medication, he might try and take on Kaido again. I don't know if he's going to have enough energy for that. I think Kaido is wearing down to his last couple of fights, where we're going to see him go crazy with Yamato, and then we're going to see this last fight with Luffy. And this last fight with Luffy is going to be the determining factor. I don't think anyone else will be joining this time around. You also have to appreciate Zoro's comment as soon as he comes back. He mentions that if they win this fight, if they take everyone's head here, Luffy will be that much closer to being Pirate King. A fantastic end to a fantastic chapter. Glad to see a lot of progression here. I'm wondering now what's going to happen with the rest of the Straw Hats since the Toblerone are out the way. You know, where do they find their usefulness? Are they going to be resting now? Are they going to be fighting some of the gifters and other people, which seems like a waste of their abilities, but they have been in big fights, so maybe they need that break. Will they be doing anything tactical? You know, what lies ahead for them? I also desperately want to see more of the Kaido versus Yamato fight. I want to see Yamato's abilities. I want to see what else Kaido can do. I want to see all of that. I have so much interest in that fight itself. I would love to have just like a chapter of them fighting, and then, you know, maybe some chapters of backstory. I think now that we've gotten a lot of the fighting within the dome out of the way, we have the opportunity to go there and kind of go through some of that stuff. Just learn more about Kaido, learn more about Yamato, and just deepen the story a little bit. But yes, let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. There will be a poll in the description. Please feel free to like, comment, subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.